Hey guys, welcome back to another Kame Trick Tandem Talk. Today we are in part 2 of our 90s Golden Drift Spot Project Hangout with team member Soyo. And in this video we're going to go into detail talking about his IRL car and driving experiences. He's got a really cool AE Hachiroku that he's been driving for the last 11 years. I also have some experience as a past AE86 owner, so we enjoy nerding out about that chassis, which is super fun to drive. I highly recommend it. A quick reminder, we did not have cameras for this shoot, so it is audio only. So listen to it while you're driving in Assetto, listen to it while you're working on your real life car. Let's jump into it.
I saw another 86 for sale. It was all the way in Utah. I drove up to Utah with my dad and his Miata on summer tires during a blizzard. We spun ass backwards off the highway at 70
Oof.
into a ditch. It was quite the experience. That's the car I still own today. I've had it like 11 years.
So I always like to take a second as well and talk about real life stuff, and especially when folks have some real life drifting experience as well. If we have time and if you're down to talk about that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so a couple of stock questions I always ask people, but when did you first get exposed to drifting?
So, it, I probably got exposed to drifting in the early 2000s just as an extension of being into video games and being into Japanese culture. Like that was kind of when it started gaining traction in the US as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, and around that time, I was starting to look for my first car.
Okay.
And I wasn't a car guy. I got into the car game pretty late. I wasn't a car guy when I got my first car. My first car was an '02 Mitsubishi Lancer ES, like nothing very exciting at all. But my dad had a 2000 NB Miata.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I learned to drive stick in his car, and it's hard to describe it exactly, but it was like this like switch flicked, it was like something sparked in me driving that car. Like trying to master something simple like learning the clutch was something of like an obsession, like because it was the skill based challenge that I felt like I really needed to overcome and master. And then that, like, once I got my car, I was always into customization. Like I'm an artist, so I feel like that was another means of expression. So like, customizing a car was a way to, like, the car kind of reflects a side of you. So it was less than a year driving through, because I lived in Utah at the time. We had a lot of great canyon roads. I would drive with my dad, spirited driving through these canyons, and I just realized, as sloshy and uninspiring as that car was, I wanted something else. So
Mm.
I started looking into cars. I thought about getting a Miata like my dad, but I was always kind of a Toyota person, and I just wanted something a little more quirky with more character.
Okay.
So was looking to spend $2,000, and not a whole lot within that price range. There was FCs, Corollas,
Yep.
um, Miatas, and I was browsing Craigslist and I found a 85 Corolla GTS Coupe,
Oh,
and it
very
was,
nice.
it had a drift kit on it. It was spray painted two-tone, and so I went to check it out. And that's when I met Brandon Wicknick, who is a
Oh yeah, you know Brandon.
yeah. So Brandon was the one selling that car, and he took me for a drive in that little test drive, and he worked out of this industrial complex. So we did some shenanigans with it, and it really, like, it infected me with the bug that is drifting. And I didn't end up buying that car, but yeah, I've known Brandon for a very long time, since the early 2000s, and I ended up getting an 86, and I took it to a Utah drift event, within a week of having it, and I ended up putting it ass first into a NASCAR bank wall.
That doesn't surprise me. Yeah, those are
I
hard
was
cars to
18.
drift.
I was 18 years old, and I was trying to do that long bank and carry a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
I straightened out. I tried to initiate again. By that time, I was veering towards the wall. I panic braked, locked up, and smacked ass end into the wall.
Ouch.
And I was young. I was dumb. I was inexperienced. It was in over my head. Like, it was stupid.
Yeah, but you
I
didn't
was totally heartbroken. I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
But it's like I felt like I should have known better. And I sold that car as a parts car for like $1,000. The funny part about it,
that is a heartbreaker. Mm.
yeah, I lost like $1,500 right in that moment.
Wow.
But the thing about it was I just felt so bad because it was so nice, and like it was my baby. Like, I was so in love with that car, and I totally ruined it.
Yeah,
It did drive. It did
it.
drive straight. I shifted the trunk over like 3 inches, and I broke the lateral rod in half somehow.
Oof.
I knocked because when I hit the ass end, it knocked the front end forward, and I hit my front wheel and knocked my alignment off.
Yeah.
I drove the thing like an hour home with the alignment so far off that it would start squealing at like 60 miles an hour.
I'm surprised you went 60 miles an hour, but okay.
I was 18 and stupid, like I said.
It happens. I'm not trying to say I wasn't.
we checked the car out, like, and people said it looked fine, like everything was intact. I actually did a few more runs after that.
Yeah, what have you got to lose, I
Believe
guess,
it or
at that
not.
point? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And everyone was really supportive and encouraging, though I was young and dumb. It kind of put me off from drifting for a while, but within like not even a month later, I saw another 8.6 for sale for $1,500 for a bone stock GTS, which even then was
damn.
a steal.
That is
So
a steal.
It was all the way in Utah. I drove up to Utah with my dad and his Miata on summer tires during a blizzard. We spun ass backwards off the highway at 70
Oof.
into a ditch. It was quite the experience.
That's dedication, though.
That's the car I still own today. I've had it like 11 years.
Oh, that's a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, most of because after that, it like shook my nerves for drifting. So I mostly stuck to autocross and track days at Miller Motorsports Park in Utah.
Okay.
So like I did a lot of autocross with it. I've done some skid pad events in the car, but I've not done a serious drift event. I wouldn't call myself a drifter. Like I've definitely drifted the car. I've had some fun sliding it, but I'm not like I'm definitely not experienced or seasoned enough to say that that's something I pursued enough to earn that title.
Fair enough. Now, when you say skid pad event, but not a serious drift event, you mean like drifting on a skid pad, but you don't perceive that to be like hardcore because there's not like consequences in the form of walls? Or I'm just curious kind of where your head's at.
Yeah, like I feel like, they like if you're doing figure eights and donuts in a giant parking lot where they wet down the asphalt, like I don't know, like I'd like there's people out there like weaving between light poles and up against cement barriers doing a full course. Like I feel like that is drifting. Those are drifters. Like
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit, but I feel like what I have done isn't enough to justify that title.
Well, I'll just say like that's the kind of mindset for someone who can become really good at it. Like always.
I had a lot of fun, and I would like to get into it, but I have so much money into that car, and it's my daily driver, and I can't afford to constantly break stuff on it.
Wow, you're still dailying it?
Yeah.
That's 11 years later from the time that you got it.
Yeah, and
Legit.
I bought my 20 valve silver top from Brandon. I bought it from him with a payment plan with not enough time to work on it, and he helped me with the install by pointing out what I should do next, and I did most of the work myself. He stored it for like 4 years while I did the swap. Bless his heart, didn't charge me anything for storage. I still feel kind of bad about it.
Did he have a D-Spare garage at that point? Like
yeah,
his brand?
he had his D-Spare brand for a long time.
Okay. Shout out, Brandon.
Yeah, shout out.
That's awesome.
He's an awesome dude, and he's done so much good for the Drift Utah community. He's a really cool dude. He's got a YouTube channel now, so you guys should go check that out.
Yeah, feel free to shout it out. I don't know if I have the link right off the top of my head, but
Yeah, I don't know that I do either, but I'm sure if you search Brandon Wicknick on Google, you will find him.
yeah, because he's got, it might just be D Spare Garage. He's also got the crew Take Luck with him,
Yeah.
Stucky, and oh shucks.
And I remember when Stucky didn't even drift yet. Like, I've known those guys for a long time. I've not really because I wasn't super active in the scene. I just kind of saw him on and off. But Brandon still recognizes me, and he'll say hi if I see him at an event, which is cool.
Where are you based now, like state-wise? Are you still in Utah or
No, I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada now. So
Vegas, right?
those drift guys come out to the Vegas events. The Utah drift guys come out here quite a bit. It's not too far.
Yeah, I was
compared
gonna
to-
say it's not that bad, is it?
It's like 8 hours.
I mean, like a lot. I think that's kind of a long way, but I just recently got a truck sorted out so that I don't have to street drive my car to drift events. So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
that's the
different
thing.
world.
I know that those guys do East Coast events, so 8 hours isn't much compared to that.
Yeah, I actually met Nick and Brandon in 2018 at Super D Matsuri at Grange, or now Apple
Nice.
Valley Speedway now. And I wasn't even driving. I just flew out to hang out, and I'd known of them on the internet before when they put out a certain video with Super Tuner that was just pretty freaking awesome. But I more or less hung with them at the event. I mean, I hung with everybody and stuff, but like we ended up camping together, and then we got to tandem together at No Coast Drift Party 8 the following year in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and didn't tandem a whole lot for No Coast Drift Party 9. I ended up having a kidney stone and spending like the first night in the hospital and then leaving the second day.
Ouch.
Yeah, it was gnarly. Like, I was 8 hours away from my house, and I had some friends that were there, but like that ended up manifesting. So like the way that event runs is typically you show up the day before, and some people will drive for like an hour, but I don't bother because I always get there late. So set up, go to sleep, and then it's one full day of driving from around 12 in the afternoon until like 10 at night. And then it's a party from then until however late you want to be up. And then Sunday, the final day, you can get up and drive early if you want, but like almost everybody's hungover. So that's when all the good tandem happens. Because like, not because they're hungover, but because the serious guys kind of like hold it back a little bit. And then everybody who either isn't really serious about proper driving and just kind of half wants to drive, half wants to party, or doesn't have reliable cars, or isn't as seasoned of a driver, has basically run out of stuff, broke their car, crashed, or is hungover. So like then you get like 8 people that come out and just fucking shred, and it's so good. So like that was my plan, was to have like a mild Saturday night and a great Sunday. And then like 15 minutes after the track closed, I was like, oh, I kind of hurt. What's that all about? Like, did I eat something weird? And yeah, then ended up spending the whole rest of the night in the hospital. I have my trailer stuck to the truck still, and I was like, I've got to get to a hospital. Like, I'm 99% sure that this is, like, I've never had a kidney stone before, but that's just what I thought it must be. And so I was like, shit, I'm just gonna have to like Google Maps a hospital and like take this 20-foot trailer still stuck to my truck, which was a rental trailer too, like downtown into Albuquerque. And I was like, I'm gonna get this thing wrapped around a tree somewhere, and it's just gonna be a bad time. But
oh man,
it was an adventure, but I didn't drive a whole lot that time, so it was kind of sad. Looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, those guys are really cool, really fun to watch drive, so I'm sure they're even more fun to drive with.
Oh yeah, super super fun guys, and I really enjoy when it's kind of like a family reunion to meet up at these bigger events. Like, the appeal of traveling long distance to drift events is in seeing everybody, and it just has such like, it's a real Matsuri feeling. Like the closest you can get to it in America is driving 4+ hours to party with guys that you never see outside of 1 or 2 events a year.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, but like with my car, I do have, I did the 20 valve swap that I got through Brandon. I have a manual. I swapped a manual steering rack into it, and I kept my power steering knuckles, and I have an NST steering spacer.
Okay.
So like 4 and 8/6, it's actually got a decent amount of angle. So it's pretty fun. It's set up on T3 coils on the front and Swift springs on the rear with KYB AGX shocks. So it's pretty stiff, 8/6K. It does pretty well for drifting. It did well for autocross, and it did well for the time I got to mess around with the skid pad stuff. But
Yeah. So
it's
how magnificent does that 20 valve sound?
oh, fantastic. I did a blacktop ACU so that I could run open throttles.
Oh shit, you've got
And
ITVs?
yeah, it's got ITBs. 20 valves have ITBs from the factory.
I must have forgotten that. I'm bound to have known that. Um, so yeah, that's embarrassing.
No
However,
worries.
plenty of people that listen also already know I'm an idiot, but they didn't know that, so it's cool for them to get to hear that. That was on purpose. I don't make mistakes. I know everything.
Right. We'll gloss over that. You can edit it out.
Yeah, we'll totally edit that out. Wink, wink. So, I never miss an opportunity to make yourself look dumb. That's my content strategy. Um, I'm gonna have to come out and just ride in that because I've not gotten to ride in a 20 valve car in person.
Uh,
I really want to just feel the car, if that makes
you
sense.
you will be overwhelmed by the sound and underwhelmed by the pole. I guarantee you.
Yeah, I think I could believe that. So the all important question for a car that is probably more grip driven than it is drifting, which is fine. We talked about it, kind of do both as well. What wheels and tires do you run for autocrossing?
Like because I wasn't super like the fact that I have that 20 valve pretty much disqualifies me from any class that I could dream about being competitive in.
Yeah,
So I'm
you're
just
like
in
street modified or something crazy.
yeah, I'm in street modified with
Okay.
tube chassis fiberglass cars and
Oh
Ariel
yeah.
Adams and stuff. So
Yeah.
um I have Koenig rewinds that I daily and I usually come in like whatever tires I have at the time, either my economy like Kuma Extas or I think the nicest I had were some Advan or I mean Yokohama S drives.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm one of those run what you brung kind of people. I'm just there to have fun. So
Yeah, man, that's the way to go. Like when I was autocrossing, it was with my S13, which I've been drifting in a similar way for like a long time. And I still occasionally autocross it in its current drift trim with the V8 swap and the huge angle kit and like a drift alignment, which is not competitive at all.
no,
Uh,
sounds like good fun though.
it is. I mean, it's a strong exercise in car control trying to grip drive a drift car and in a similar way, trying to drift a grip car, like they're not that different. It's mostly the driving style that changes it with a bit of alignment.
Right.
But
The tires can make quite a difference, I suppose, too.
yeah, tires are insane. Going from like a sort of summer tire to like a max performance summer tire that's class legal will bump you up. If there were 10 people running and you cared about how you place, if you were running like eighth, it would probably put you into like contention for fourth. Like it's
Yeah.
unless everybody but you was already on the best tires, like it's insane. It's like a cheat code how much tires make a difference. People always underestimate tires.
The it's funny because like the autocross things I did at Miller Motorsports were like they were running autocross alongside of like what they called Wide Open Wednesday, where they would have the track open except for chicanes on the high speed straights to keep speeds down. Like that
Ooh.
way they didn't have to do as intense safety, but it
Yep.
actually made it quite fun. Like I love those rushing into those chicanes was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
And
that is a fun track element.
yeah, so like most of the hardcore people were out on the track, and the people on the autocross were like the people maybe that were worried about going out on the track in their cars. Like, so there a lot of them were just like new, like then new at the time Camaros and Mustangs and Dodge Chargers and some like Golfs and Cobalt SSs and stuff like that. And I was like really super impressed because that like back then when I first started autocross, like I just had like my saggy Eibach lowering springs, like blown blown shocks, blown bushings, and I was putting down like several seconds faster than a lot of those like brand new Camaros and stuff like that. Like just because I was driving the hell out of it, and I guess maybe they were reserved or something. But like, so there wasn't a ton of competition in that, but doing actual like autocross events like SCCA days where that was all there was, like most people were on very, very competitive setups, and I couldn't even really come close to most of those times unless they were just other people there, running whatever car they happened to bring by for the fun of it.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between like someone who cherry picks the perfect car and level of tuning for a class they want to win versus someone who likes a car and builds it for themselves and then just says, "Hey, where does this fall?" And it's always stupid. Like if you're not familiar with autocross, you'll get weird rules where like you can't do a certain like you can do any mod that you want to, but it may put you into an insane class. And
Yeah,
so you might
wheel
find that
can't be like more than an inch wide, or tire can't be two sizes up. Like a lot of really fine details.
yeah, that's always one of the big ones. You might find that like removing your interior if you're just like into a max effort street car, but you're like early in the process, that I think that puts you into street modified too, and it's like
It does.
you could have a stock car with no interior and you'll be racing against supercharged like Lotus Elises. Like it's insane.
On racing slicks, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But of course the real perspective or the real point is it's time based, and sure, of course everybody wants to win, but ultimately the only person that you need to beat is yourself last lap. Like you're trying to beat your own
Exactly.
times. It's not like basketball where you're actively guarding against like the guy trying to score the basket. You all you can do is do the best that you can do. And then if that happens to be the best at the event, great. If not, who cares? It's all about improving your own time.
And that's what I had so much fun, was just seeing how much faster I could get if it was just a few tenths of a second or several seconds by the end of the day. That was satisfying. I felt like I was, and a lot of times my dad would go with me too. So the friendly competition between me and him and his Miata, like very kind of similar cars.
Yeah, they're evenly matched, those two.
Very, yeah, quite evenly matched. Like I would say that he probably had a little bit of an edge, more tires, stiffer chassis, better suspension.
Yeah, the independent rear
But
helps a
yeah,
lot.
it's got wishbones on all four corners. It's a really rad chassis.
Yeah, I love finding chassis that like they really have no business having such advanced stuff, or like they should have come with better engines, one of the two. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
super cool.
I would love an NB. Like if I was gonna get a fun car that would be dedicated track drift beater or whatever, it would probably be a Miata.
I almost got into Spec Miata instead of taking my
Oh,
240SX out of the barn when I came back from Japan. Well, not quite when I came back from Japan, but anyway, I was gonna either do like a massive mod to my 240, buy an entirely different chassis for drifting, or get into wheel to wheel, and I almost got a Spec Miata because it's a great series with a lot of competition.
it's so fun to watch. It's probably like one of the only like grip racing things I find entertaining to watch. I don't know, like for the most part, there's not that much action, but for some reason with Spec Miatas, there's just constant overtaking and crazy maneuvers, and it's very exciting to watch.
Yeah, and it's accessible.
It's
Like
accessible, yeah.
they're
I think
expensive,
that's
but
part of the appeal.
yeah, you can have a Spec Miata for 10 or 15,000, probably
Yeah,
less. I haven't looked at it super close, but like that would be the cost to buy somebody's used, like tagged, documented, ready to run Spec Miata.
yeah, that sounds about right.
And if you're into sim only, and that sounds like a lot of money, it's not that
It's
bad.
not.
Like it's it's funny because like most people that are into motorsports, especially people that are into drifting and stuff, we don't have that much money. It's not like we're balling out of control over here, but you realize that when it's $300 to $500 a weekend to do something, like 10,000 bucks to actually have the car ready to roll is not it's not that bad. You
You
just
know,
have to
like,
save up and budget. Learn to budget. Don't get into debt.
yeah, exactly. Or you can be like me, like I'm probably around 15K into my 8.6 at this point. But I've had it 11 years and I've literally done all my upgrading paycheck to paycheck. Like it's been a, a very long game build. But the car is super enjoyable for what it is. It's not competitive. It's not super fast. I think I dynoed it at 130 to the wheels when it wasn't running quite top notch. So it's probably not much more than that, if anything. Like, but it's fun. It's an experience. There's something about the sounds, the smells, the feels. It's very direct. It's very analog. That's got polyurethane bushings and helm joint four links. Like everything's solid and rigid and stiffer motor mounts and transmission mounts. So like you're sitting there idling at stoplights, feeling the vibrations in the steering wheel. Like it's a very direct experience or driver oriented car, and I enjoy that. Some people, they want a lot of creature comforts in their car. For me, I'm willing to sacrifice that for something that really speaks to me as being like enthusiast driver oriented. I'm willing to sacrifice comfort for that raw,
Yeah, like
I don't even know how you
visceral
put it.
feel.
Yeah, that visceral feel. There's nothing else. Like I test drove a BRZ once when I considered like getting it and maybe putting my 8.6 in the garage and using it as a weekend car. But I test drove that car and it was fast, like compared to my car. It's not a fast car, but it 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 was quick through corners. I scared the shit out of the guy that was let me test driving it by really flinging it around, and it felt like even at its sketchiest, it still felt so stable and safe and not dramatic and quiet and all the sound deadening. Like you had to roll down the windows to hear anything. Like when I got out of that car, got back into my 8.6 to drive home, like that really cemented in me what I want out of a car. And it just wasn't that, I wanted this direct, visceral, this raw kind. I don't. You'll hear people talk about 8.6s of all its parts. That is something magical that you really cannot put into words.
Yeah, greater than the sum of all its parts. Audio cut out once or twice there, but I got almost everything.
The gist of it, yeah.
Yeah, and right, audience listening, you need to ride in one, and if you ever get the opportunity to handle one of those cars, they are really, really amazing. So I don't know if you know this, but I used to have a 4AGZE GTS coupe.
Oh, nice.
And it was a grip car on Hoosiers, and it was a weapon. But like you, it was not competitive because it still was not a weapon compared to the supercharged Elise. However, holy crap, it was so fun at autocross. It was kind of not all that impressive anywhere besides the autocross track because you don't find turns that tight, but damn, it was a weapon at autocross.
Yeah, see, I like because I lived in Utah with tight canyon roads, like even when the car had its bone stock blue top in it and pretty lacking stock like suspension that was very worn, it was fun because I could really push around and bully like the popular, pretty newish at the time, like Bug Eye and Blob Eye Imprezas, even the STIs and stuff, because like the kind of turns were sketchy and tight, and a combination of my car being a lot lighter and me being young and stupid, maybe a little ballsier. Like I could stick to their bumpers and it would really piss them off. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's and that part is a lot of the weight for the car because like the EF Civic, the CRX, the 8.6, the Miatas are all surprisingly fast and autocross and like tight Touge style conditions. AW11 MR2 as well as the newer MR2s.
Oh yeah,
like you
I
just
love
have
AW11s.
Right, same. I was thinking about, as soon as we started talking about 8.6s, I was thinking about my good friend Grant, who is living in Tokyo presently, but he was around and we like built my 86 together in his dad's garage because I didn't really have a garage where I was living, and I was living out of town, and his dad is into AW11s, so it's just kind of awesome. Shout out to Grant and his whole family for that. But it was a really good time to go and get together and build. So like it was a similar thing. We were on almost the exact same setup. It sounds like I had the T3 coils in the front. I had Swift springs out back again with the AGX struts as well.
Nice. Yeah, it's a solid setup. It's very proven and widely used.
I was running, I think like 7K, 5K. I wanted it to be a little bit grippier.
Okay.
All the T3 like panhard bars and links and things. I had their tension rods and I didn't end up installing them.
Ooh, that makes quite a bit of difference.
Yeah, I know. I sold them with the car, just I never got around to it. Which was unfortunate because that car needed some caster. It had the one thing I didn't like because it was somebody else's project that I bought. I did all the suspension and brake tuning. It came on like Takiko Blues and Eibach lowering springs, and it would rub if you had a passenger in the car. Like not so good. But I did all the suspension and brake tuning, but it already came with the 4AG ZE supercharged motor swapped in, and it also had those tension rods, and I never got them installed. But I did try to drift it after I had tuned it up for grip on its street wheels, and it was difficult. The guy had a depowered power rack, so it was fine to grip race, but if you needed to counter steer, it was awful.
Yeah,
Absolutely
I found like because I had a depowered rack for a while, most of the car's life actually, and with going to the manual rack, it was so much less effort. But it kind of like it really influences your style in a certain way too, because you drive in a way that makes the car steer itself. You spend less time like fighting it or trying to like
correct.
Yeah, like correct in a way where you're really overpowering the steering. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Like a lot of times you find yourself like I don't like you like hard counter steering as a correction. I guess maybe you have to make less mistakes that would cause those corrections in the first place. It's hard to explain.
That's basically it, and that's something where like I primarily learned to drift on power steering, and at this day and age, it's almost impossible not to learn on power steering.
Yeah.
So there are things that I do where when I get into a depowered car or a car that has manual steer if it's got a manual rack, it's really not bad. I don't tend to notice it because the gearing is set up in a way that it's supposed to not be super hard to steer. But if you run into a depowered rack where their power steering is busted, for me it's almost undrivable. Like I do not have fun fighting with the wheel, and I don't think my technique is that bad, but obviously because I didn't learn that way, similar to learning on a low power car, like there are things that you do differently for sure.
Yeah.
That there are things you can find out about style and ways to manage the vehicle's weight shift and stuff. But it's like e-brake drifting or not using the e-brake in drifting. You just have to do the right amount or get close to the right amount of things to the point that you don't need to make major corrections. And I'm sure the steering is the same way, If you time when to let go of the wheel and when to grab it correctly, then you shouldn't have to do too many corrections.
Yeah, for sure. And like I'm not the most experienced with drifting, but like the skid pad event that I did, I was already on my manual rack at that point, so I don't really the sliding I did depowered was just a little bit of here and there on the streets, like nothing super serious, and they were more just like little shit slides that I would kind of power out of tight turns. Well, I guess I don't know if you can really call it power out in an 8.6. But it's like if you kept your foot in the throttle and you turn tight enough, the back end would kind of come out.
Absolutely, with that solid axle and
exactly, yeah,
not having rear camber.
Yeah,
that's what makes those cars fun, though.
Yeah, it's a hell of a drug. I love them to death. I'm an 8.6 person for life.
I would not mind having another one, but I had to be honest with myself and say like I can't have two project or like race cars at the same time at my current infrastructure, both in terms of garage space, space to work, and like budget. So unless I was dailying an 8.6, I probably like for me the 240 is what's got to stay in my life until I destroy it or until I am too old to drive.
Yeah, and I came to that same kind of realization recently too, because I've had two projects for a long time. The other one was a Datsun 280Z that it's been taking garage space while I perpetually worked on it, and it's just at a point where I like don't have the time, money, or energy to do something with it. So it's time to give that garage space up and give someone else a shot at it.
Yeah, that's it's a hard thing to accept, but like
It
the
is.
car that you keep is gonna be like so happy.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
it
I
gets
mean,
so good after
it
that.
already got it already got all my money and attention too. He just kind of got neglected for years on end.
Yeah, so it's the right move.
Yeah.
Anything else real life drifting related that you want to share? We're probably gonna have to wrap up pretty soon. It's getting a little late.
Yeah, I noticed we're over your time estimate. So no, there's not really anything else. Like I didn't have that all much to talk about in terms of the real life drift stuff. I have a real life drift car. I don't really do real life drift things. But I'm very much into it, and obviously there's a passion that crosses over quite a bit, even if I do spend most of my time gripping and well, just kind of enjoying the daily activities I do in it.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's a foundational thing for any motorsport. Like you love cars, or at least your specific chassis that you have chosen to specialize in. And I mean, for me, I I always enjoy and appreciate grip racing and grip driving, even through like the canyons and stuff, as well as proper drifting. And I think that drift guys tend to be a lot more open-minded and willing to like see both sides of that coin. Sometimes the grip only guys get mm, pretty strict about only what's like good for the clock, and maybe don't give drifting a chance to appreciate the fun and the legit car control skills that you can learn that will help you become a more competent grip driver.
For sure. And I like, the drift guys tend to take themselves less seriously, and they're willing to sacrifice a little bit of performance in the sake of looking cool. Like that's something you don't really see in the grip side of things.
Yeah, yeah, either looking cool or sometimes having fun. That's subjective, of course, but
Exactly. Like, it- like, and a lot of the things that contribute to drifting, like, for an 8.6, I don't have a ton of power. And when I'm mostly focused on just having fun, like, it's okay with the rear end to come out earlier, like with, for example, having like stretch tires versus, you know, beefy tires. Like, yeah, it's not going to perform as well in terms of holding grip around a corner, but it's probably going to kick out easier, and I'm going to have more fun kicking out than I would gripping up
yeah,
under that speed. So,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
in the name of fun, like things like tire stretch or being excessively low, like that's the things you see more in the drift community.
Yep, which is always really neat to see everybody express things and kind of show off what they think is cool. Because there's
Yeah,
everything from like the monster truck style drift and really wide fronts to the classic low sort of street sweeper type guys.
yeah, and I mean, I tend like to gravitate more towards that like street sweeper style, like even if, yeah, they're not gonna be competitive like at events and stuff, like, compared to those guys that have like the front rake and super, wheels poking out the front end and stuff like that look a little silly.
Yeah, it does get a little
It's
ridiculous
subjective,
looking.
but like, if you look at like Formula D cars, or even like the like Kansai drift cars, like it's like quite a different different look compared to especially like the early 2000s. And obviously being 90s Golden Drift Spot project, I like the aesthetics of those 90s and early 2000s cars that were, they didn't know as much about what made drifting cars optimum. So there was that, but there was also just more drifting should be about looking cool versus a serious sport. It was more subjective, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I think I drifted my car on stock front control arms and stock angle, except for a 5 millimeter rack spacer for like 8 or 10 years, like a long time. So I can relate, man. It's I can't go back to that. It's just not
Oh
easily.
yeah.
It's not as fun to go back to it, but like I really am glad that I learned in that way.
Yeah, and you had a chance to enjoy that and go through that phase.
Yeah, and I didn't have to do it while being frustrated by the fact that like my friends who spent more money could have, FD angle kits on their street cars, even though they're brand new beginners like me. Like there was no other
Yeah,
option. I was actually running the modern stuff just about. Like obviously FD teams had more, but all that tech hadn't come into the market for regular users like us yet.
I enjoy grassroots and like those more like street warrior cars where people, younger people just struggling to, do what they're passionate about without tons of disposable income. Like it's fun to see that kind of aspect of the drift world. Like it's cool to see the people more serious about it with lots of money and like really incredible builds. But I like those rough looking, like just underdog kind of cars, I guess.
There's a lot of heart to them,
A lot of
and
heart, yeah.
it feels
A lot
good
of
to.
soul.
Yeah, and maybe for us, we can look back and see ourselves in that a little bit too. So,
True,
you
yeah.
kind of want to be like,
Nostalgia.
you want to be like, keep going, man, because people come up to me and they're like, dude, your car is so awesome, and I'm like, well, yeah, but you don't think about the fact that I built it over 10 or 15 years. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't any better than yours is now when I was where you are now. So like, just be patient, stay into it, and you'll look back and be like, wow, I've come so far at some point.
I definitely like I've not given up completely on the idea of being more seriously into drift at some point. I don't know if I would do it in this chassis just because there's so much blood, sweat, and tears and sentimental value. Like it might be too hard to really thrash it around. But like fantasize about a time where I'm more financially stable and I could have a dedicated car for doing stuff like that.
Well,
Maybe someday.
yeah, if you ever want to make your way out to Oklahoma, I'll let you take a few laps in mine if we're having an event.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, it's a neat thing to be able to do. I don't let a whole lot of people drive my car, but I don't mind to. It's just fun. Usually, like the guys out here who have built cars, we don't really do it a lot, but we don't mind to let one another check our cars out from time to time. Or if somebody's car is down and they come out to spectate the event, we'll usually be like, here, take a few laps and get your fix. Like get motivated to go back and fix your car up for the next event. So
Yeah, and likewise, I know you said you wanted to, if you're ever out here, you wanted to get to take a ride and hear the sounds, and I'd be totally comfortable having you drive my car too, if you're okay with the kind of quirky, hard to drive nature of it. I'm sure it's nothing for you.
I mean, every car is different, but being able to feel how a car just expresses itself, both on power, brakes, and in the corners, is just something that I really enjoy. So,
Oh yeah, for sure.
but I would even be happy with just a ride along. So I hope that our paths will cross at some point.
Yeah, and maybe they will. Like I said, it's funny that we both have a common ground in knowing Brandon and
Yeah,
Stucky and those guys. So
yeah, that's pretty neat. So my last closing questions are always about the gaming community here. Are there any teams, any groups, any Discord channels, and of course, it's impossible to name everybody who's out there, but anybody that you want to throw a shout out to or encourage folks to check out?
um and I'd like to give a shout out obviously to Touge Union. Mine does a excellent job keeping all that running smooth oil machine. And he deals with a lot of crap to provide that community to people. And if it weren't for that community and for the space that he's given us for 90's Golden Drift Spot project, like, we probably wouldn't be half as successful as we are. So I'd like to thank Touge Union in a major way. Also, being that I'm varied in a lot of different groups, I'd also like to shout out Shitoko Revival Project, because it's really where I gained my traction and my knowledge as far as learning how to mod and helping me grow as a modder. So those guys, John, Trawa, Taku, my fellow developers there, I'd really like to thank them for putting up with me and my crap and helping me become a better modder, because we definitely get on each other's nerves sometimes, and it's great. They're basically like a family to me, so I'd like to thank those guys, and that whole side of the community, just the Touge and the Wangan community in general. I owe everything about like where I've gotten as far as where I am today as a modder, and the people that recognize my efforts inside and outside the drift community, and also the name Soyo just in general in my own mod projects. I can't thank them enough.
Awesome. And for online driving, are there any Assetto servers that you might recommend if somebody wants to get into a little bit of Touge action?
I'm gonna shamelessly plug the Drift Life servers, because it is a collaboration between me and Mind, who runs the Touge Union Discord. It is a Discord group where we host 3 Assetto Corsa servers. We have a track server, a Touge server, and a street server. So we feature a lot of 90's Golden Drift Spot project maps. Right now we have the World Drift Tour Street Pack cars, the most recent update that just came out earlier this month.
Oh yeah, those are my favorite.
Shout out to those guys at Drift Workshop for the Drift Workshop cars, the World Drift Tour and the World Drift Tour Street Pack. They're phenomenal, and they're my favorite drift cars to drive. And we owe a lot to those guys for having a cohesive pack that people can use and really enjoy together. So big shout out and thank you to those guys. But yeah, our servers, I could recommend those. I also, I think the OTM, the On the Mountain guys, are doing awesome with their servers and their community. They host quality cars, quality tracks. Definitely highly recommend that. And if you're into grip, the Touge Union servers that always have Touge courses, they're grip driving oriented, and there's our own Shitoko Revival Project servers that is obviously more highway and Wangan grip oriented. But if you're into that, that you'll find a lot of crossover between the drift communities just because of the common ground of Japanese production cars.
Yeah, true. I'm gonna have to check out some of those because, like I said, I'm into grip, and I generally like to see like, okay, what's the appeal of this, or what would it be like to actually drive in a decent sim on the highways, because like I played Wangan Midnight, but I want to see what it's like in a proper sim. So
yeah, and our Shitoko Revival Project map is based on a lot of assets from Genki games, such as the Tokyo Extreme Racer series, being Import Tuner Challenge for the Xbox 360 and Wangan Midnight PS3.
Yep.
And they're all laser scanned, accuracy, like attention to detail, like this stuff. And we made sure to scale it so that the lanes were proper sized and the distances were proper. And we've been pouring our heart into that for over a year. So it's really coming into its own, and that's the most authentic experience you can get in terms of driving those Tokyo highway loops in a racing sim. And then, you know, compared to like arcade games like Wangan, Midnight, Maximum Tune, it's night and day.
Yeah, and I've driven on those, not in a race way, in a Toyota Hi-Ace rental vehicle when I'm going to Ebisu, but still, like, I've been there, and it is accurate. Not that I have a ton of experience, but my friends who live in Japan as well have seen some videos they need to get into. Like my buddy Grant, who I mentioned earlier, he's gonna try to get into Assetto at some point, and he was like, "Yeah, man, this is like where I live. Like I know this. This is so rad."
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's legit. It's very cool. What are your thoughts on ways that the Assetto, Corsa, or drifting community could improve? Like, is there like a dream formula for something that would take it to the next level?
You know, like, I don't know. My biggest thing is I would love to see less conflict and hate and me versus you, especially between modders. Just because when we collaborate and we put our efforts together and we combine our skill sets, good things happen, and we can make so much more content, such higher quality, if we stop talking shit on each other and really start building each other up and helping each other out. Like, I feel like that would greatly benefit everyone. And, you know, it's, you know, maybe I'm a dreamer for wishing everyone would just get along and be nicer to each other, but it's really as simple as that. Like, that's what I would really love to see in the Assetto Corsa community, is just for people to try a little bit harder at getting along and not being toxic and deconstructing and tearing each other down, because it really doesn't benefit anyone.
Yeah, and like we talked about, you're going to have so many more people who sit on the sidelines right now actually engage, either as users or as contributors, and you're probably going to see some really exciting things.
Yeah, and you know, the more people that are encouraged, the more likely we'll have even more people making content in the future, and who knows what they might make. They might bring the next biggest thing to Assetto Corsa, you know, that we never could have dreamed of having. So
Yep, it's all stuff that we can't predict, so you just got to try and create the optimal conditions and see what happens. And now this is the part where I ask for advice. Who would you want to see or hear be on the Tandem Talk show next?
ooh,
Call out some people, because my network is tiny and I need to grow it.
I'm trying to think of terms of like drift people. You know, one group who has done a lot for the Assetto Corsa drift community, and I feel like they've been underappreciated for what they've done, is the Downside Garage group, DSG. They, you know, they put together a really good drift car pack that's maybe more pro oriented, a little faster, grippier. But those guys do great work, and I've heard that they've done a lot of updating, a lot of refining of tire models, and they have some really good content, but they've been a little they've just been kind of bummed about the general state of the Assetto Corsa community, and I totally understand, but you know, tons of us do appreciate that stuff, and we would love to see the latest and greatest of what you have to offer. And there's so many drift lobbies running that kind of content too. So I think that's a definite group that deserves some, you know, more exposure.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, I just, because I've been so like detached from the drift community for stuff like that, I guess it's hard for me to think of other groups.
Yeah, no, it's all good, man. I'm kind of the same, but it's because you have your nose to the grindstone and you're focused on, you know, your own sphere, not really like for any bad reason, but you just, yeah, if you get really engaged in making content, or sometimes even just in driving, it's just natural. You run with who you run with. But I will definitely see if I can make contact with the crew over at DSG and see if somebody wants to be on. I always love to learn about everybody in the community, because I learn as much as my audience does a lot of the time, but also to really have a chance to deep dive with these different crews and creators and tell more of their story than what you see in a one paragraph Facebook post about the latest car update. There's so much behind the scenes and so much effort and so many cool personalities behind that car pack that you downloaded in 30 seconds that
Absolutely.
I think that it's just really exciting to be able to give people a chance to share a little bit more. Those who are up for telling us a little bit more about how they got into it and what they're going to be getting into in the future.
From the community side of things too, and like the VDC, the virtual drift competition guys,
Mm-hmm.
they do a lot for the Assetto Corsa drift community. Just they're probably the biggest, competitive series for sim drifting, and the owner or kind of head guy in charge, NZ, he does. I feel like he's kind of an unsung hero for a lot of those things. He deserves a lot more credit than he gets. Same can be said for Lone Star Drift. Like they've just been hugely popular for their drift servers, and they have a central point for a lot of people to drift together that are more into the casual drift scene. They host a range of cars and tracks, usually more circuit based, from Tando Buddies to World Drift Tour to a lot of things. So those guys definitely deserve some credit too.
Yeah, Lone Star Assetto is a group of folks that I need to interface with more, honestly, because geographically they are quite near to me with Lone Star Drift operating out of Texas. They're about 3 hours from their nearest venue to my house, and I've gone down to hang with them.
Wow.
I've actually
Yeah, and
got videos, riding with some of the guys from there. I've tandemed with Losi. Not that he's on the Assetto side really, but I've tandemed with Losi. I've ridden with Fielding and Mike and just all the crew out there. It's funny. We hang out more in real life than we do in game, but I need to correct that.
yeah, and that's the thing about those guys too, is they're really real life oriented. So it's that's like there's definitely the groups that are more sim oriented, and there's the groups that are more real life oriented with the sim side of things, and it's cool to see both ends of that spectrum.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, that is always good to know. For anybody who's listening and has made it this far, I do accept guests. So, I mean, I reach out to people myself that I want to have, but I also have a Google form that is in my Discord, as well as in the links to the show notes or the video notes if you're watching this on YouTube. So if you think that you'd like to be on the show, then feel free to apply. It's not anything like hardcore. It's just that I like to collect information so that I can sort of sort out and strategize about when do I want to feature different people. And the entire point is to talk about drifting, car life, a little bit of everything. Content creators are fine to apply to, and I'm totally open to cover more general driving things as well. So I am not opposed to getting like the Shuto Revival Project team on here and talking about that, even if it's not specifically drifting, and Grip Touge as well. I think all that stuff is rad. I think my people will like it as well. So definitely hop in there and let me know what you're about if you want to be on the show. And I guess that's pretty much going to wrap it up, wouldn't you say? Any closing thoughts?
No, that sounds great, and like you mentioned, I think if you would be interested in the Chutoko Revival Project interview, that's something we can definitely make happen.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to talk offline about that, and it'll just be a matter of slotting it into to the schedule. I want to keep things kind of fresh and switch around. I'm gonna feature some real life drifters. I'm gonna also have some media guys be on as well, and just kind of try to show different perspectives, generally centering around drifting, but car love is a universal language, and even if you're not only drifting, like, you find people that appreciate performance driving and things like that, and I'm sure that that it's going to be a fun conversation no matter what.
For sure.
All right, well, thank you for taking the time to chat with me tonight. I really appreciate it. And everybody, this is Soyo from 90's Golden Drift Spot Project. So definitely check them out. And I'm going to probably have to have you back on later because you also are doing some solo projects that we didn't want to talk about as much this time, but those are pretty rad too. So feel free to check Soyo out. Your YouTube channel is it just called Soyo?
It's Soyo 20V 20V.
20V for that 20 valve. That is right.
Exactly, yeah.
And if folks want to find you on social, is there anywhere else that they should check out?
I am pushing the Soyo kind of as a brand, so I do have a Facebook page. I have a Patreon page. I have a Twitter, the YouTube, obviously, an Instagram. And my Instagram is pretty big. I haven't been super active on it lately, but I plan to be more active. Definitely. So there's pretty much the whole spectrum of social media platforms covered on that one.
Right on. Yeah, we will see you there for anybody that wants to check out more. And of course, the same goes for 90's Golden Drift Spot Project. They've got Facebook, and I guess it's mostly Skyflight's Insta where he posts that up.
Yeah, he has an Instagram. He also has a Twitter where he posts a lot of like his pictures from his trips to Japan, where he does his research and reference material gathering. So lots of cool stuff there.
Man, that is so rad. The amount of effort that he's putting into that entire thing, like going to Japan for research and not just to goof off. That's so cool.
Yeah, like he's there on site taking pictures of road cambers and details, and yeah, he puts a lot of heart into making accurate representations of those courses for us to enjoy.
That is so awesome. And yeah, I'm gonna get some sleep, and then later I will try to go enjoy that as well. I want to have a Friday night live stream actually on Touge at some point, which is gonna be a little bit of a tall order for some of our people, but
For sure.
Yeah, a little bit of chaos is not always a bad thing. It'll certainly be fun to watch.
Make for an entertaining live stream for sure.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks so much for your time, and I'm sure I'll see you again. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
And you've made it to the end. Again, thank you all for listening. Please hit that like button. And if you want to be a guest on the Tandem Talk podcast, you think you've got something cool to share about the Assetto or real life drifting communities, drop me a note. There's a Google form where you can apply to be a guest. So let me know what you're about, and maybe we will see you there. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in my next Assetto or IRL car video. Have a good one. Peace.